So Professor Jason Arday is dead, and I'm really heartbroken. Last night when I saw the news, I had to put myself to bed early. I just felt overwhelmed by this news. And this morning when I wake up, I feel really compelled to speak about it. I'm heartbroken. For those of you that are watching this that don't know, Professor Jason Arday was found dead in his home in Battersea yesterday at just 41 years old. He was a Cambridge professor, a young black man, a father, a husband, a brother, a son, just a man with so much potential, a very gifted man who has been accused of some things and really dealt so badly with in the press that it caused him mental anguish. And now he's dead. The police are saying that his death is not suspicious, but it is unexpected. We don't have any details. We don't know the facts. I'm speaking today, acknowledging that I don't know the facts. But what I do know is that the context around this young man's final weeks is grave, is deeply upsetting to me. He was subjected to extraordinary public scrutiny because of the accusations around plagiarism and some of his personal claims, and his professional capacity came into question. Like I said, I don't know the facts, but it does appear that there was a vitriolic, sustained campaign of abuse and hate towards this man. I don't know him. I don't know him personally, but my heart really does break for his family, and I send my sincere condolences. But what really cuts is that behind the news is a real human being, is a man, a husband, a father, a son. It's a neurodivergent man who became extraordinarily visible in his field. He became symbolically significant to many of us as a black man in an institution such as Cambridge at such a high level. He became significantly symbolic to us, and he became the object of enormous public scrutiny and examination and ridicule and judgment. And my God, when I think about that, when I think about what that man went through, it really does hurt. I think it doesn't matter what we find out about whether he was guilty or not in the coming weeks and months. To me, that's not really the question that I'm asking. I think that this case raises some really serious questions for us as leaders who are waking up to the call on our lives to lead important, meaningful change. Me included, you included. It's got me thinking that, it's got me questioning, what is our entitlement as power holders when it comes to how we treat other human beings? This is the question that's really central to this for me. I don't believe that accountability is the same as demonizing. They're just not the same thing. I don't believe that accountability is dehumanizing. They're not the same thing. I don't believe that accountability is the same thing as cruelty. I understand that there needs to be legitimate investigation, and I understand that there needs to be correcting of, public records and facts, gathering of facts. I do understand that there needs to be, the people need to be held responsible when they do wrong, if they've done wrong, if they're found guilty of doing wrong. All of that is one thing, but turning somebody into prey. I've heard the word hounding bounded about. Sadiq Khan called it pernicious public shaming. This is not okay. The whole thing has got me thinking about the cost, the human cost of prominence and high level leadership and high level visibility. I'm thinking about the cost because my work is in large part about calling people, humans in black bodies, humans in brown bodies, to be fully expressed at that level. I'm thinking about this. This morning when I woke up, I remembered that saying that we have in Jamaica, that the higher the monkey climbs, the more his backside is exposed. We talk so easily, don't we, about wanting more diverse people in positions of power. We talk about how we want to see black and brown bodies represented in high-level influence. But much, much less is said about what happens when somebody from outside of the normal, traditional mold of what it looks like to be a senior leader, a governor, when people like that become more highly visible. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about what it takes to survive being scrutinized at that altitude, at that level of leadership. We don't talk about it, but I get to have conversations, and it is brutal. It's brutal. You know, what I think is that whether or not Professor Arday made the mistakes that they said he made, or that they say he made, he's still a human being. He's still a human being that's worthy of compassion and love and fairness. And a human being should be able to do wrong, to be exposed, to be corrected, to be held accountable, to be exposed, even disgraced, without the rest of us forgetting that there's a human being in there, there's a soul in there, there's somebody's son in there, somebody's husband, somebody's person in there. It's just got me thinking about how we hold people accountable. I'm thinking that how we hold people accountable is in itself a reflection of who we are, of our leadership. And now a man is dead. And now a family grieves. And I think it deserves our deepest contemplation. I think it deserves time to sit and reflect on what's led to this. I'm asking myself, what could be different if we governed and led with greater consideration for people, for human beings? What would happen if we could govern and lead with greater love and greater fairness? You know, over recent years, I've heard so much said about um, being more human in leadership. I've heard a lot said about humanistic leadership, and it frustrates me because what it's subtly suggesting is that the ferocious appetite to hurt people and destroy people and hound people is not human, but it is human. It is human. The capacity for compassion is human, but the capacity for cruelty is human too. The capacity for mercy is human, but the capacity for vengeance and hatred and violence is human too. Protecting people is human, but so is joining in and kicking someone when they're down. That's human too. Our history makes it perfectly clear that humanity has a dark side. But I believe that despite what someone does, their inherent dignity ought not to be violated by humans, ought not to be violated by other people. I'm thinking about where the rules come from, about how we wield power. Where do we learn how to wield power? It's got me thinking about what restraints need to be put on people with power. What restraints do we need to be putting on ourselves? Just because someone does something wrong doesn't give us license to destroy them, to hurt them in any way. So many questions are coming up for me. I'm asking, what or who governs us when we have legitimate grounds for grievance against other people, against another person? What is governing our exercise of power? What is governing me and you and us when we feel authorized to handle someone's falling short? Is it the law? Is it the truth and justice? Is it love that's driving us? Is it anger, entertainment? You know, that kind of warped sense of, I'm thinking about the gladiators in the arenas killing people for fun, for entertainment of the elite. What is this? What is driving us? Is it tribalism? Is it racism? Is it that dopamine hit that we're looking for when we participate? I'm just frustrated with the notion of being more human without the realization that we need to consider the ugliness of that. The Bible says that the human heart is deceitfully, above all things, desperately wicked. It's deceitful and above all things, desperately wicked. That's the human heart. I think what that means is that the inner thoughts and the inner desires of people can really trick us. It can trick us into doing wrong things and hiding behind bad motives. Being human has a dark side, and we need to think about that. I think it's a leadership imperative that we think about that. I think it's a leadership imperative that we face it and own our humanity and consider this aspect, this ugly, dark side of our humanity in leadership. That this is not something that we can just pretend is not there and we can sweep under the carpet, because it is running things. We've got to develop our willingness to accept this aspect of ourselves. Who are we when someone has done wrong? What kind of power do we become when we believe that we are right, that we're better than? What or who or is driving and guiding and governing our anger, our appetite for justice, our journalism? My God. What's governing our institutions? For me, these are spiritual questions. They're questions about righteousness. They're moral questions. I'm asking myself, what does righteousness look like when justice and truth and mercy and dignity and accountability have to coexist and have to be all part of all elements of what we're actually doing and how we're actually leading? These are the questions that I'm grappling with. And actually, something else is coming up too. I don't know if Professor Arday did the things that we said he did, but if he did, I'm asking myself, why? Why do accomplished people embellish? Why add something to your CV that isn't quite true? Why do we inflate our contribution? Why do we borrow language and ideas without sufficient attribution or exaggerate proximity to power? Why do we feel the need to make our achievements sound bigger than they are? Why do we allow an inaccurate version of our story to stand in order to make ourselves look better? I know that there are a gazillion reasons why. But for me, I can't separate them from identity. I can't separate them. I can't shake the image of a human being making a quiet conclusion that the truth about me isn't enough. That's why I embellish. That's why I lie. The real achievement isn't impressive enough. My actual credentials aren't enough. My real story won't open doors. My ordinary humanness won't sustain the image that I need people to have of me. It boils down to who I actually am is not enough, is not sufficient. And I see this over and over again, not just on my own journey, but I see it in the women that I support. I see it in senior leaders. I see it in accomplished, brilliant, powerful power carriers. So the other thing that's come up for me is what kind of person, what kind of culture makes truth safe enough or unsafe enough to live in? Why isn't it okay for us to just live with our truth, to be comfortable in our truth? You know, that when I onboard my clients, when I onboard new members, even when I speak to prospects, this is something that I say to them all the time, that your greatness is already in the bag. That even though what we talk about, you might not know the answers, or you might lose your composure, or you might feel wavering, or you might, but that does not change for me, that your greatness is already in the bag. We have that conversation right off the top, because I realize that I need to create space where people are allowed to be who they are, where they are, without shame, without pain. I know I've been going on a bit, and I am heartbroken, and I'm sending deep condolences to the Arday family and everybody connected with this wonderful man. What I know is that this is just another picture of what must change in leadership, what must change in governance and our society today. I believe that the change starts by you and I making these questions that I'm raising very personal, that we should be asking ourselves these questions, and then becoming the kind of leader who can help our organizations and help our industries ask these very same questions and help find the way forward.